Today we're talking about iconic timber structures. Advanced manufacturing now offers designers a wide variety of manufactured wood beams and wood panels. With these new options comes opportunities for creative uses. We'll discuss where we've been and where the industry needs to go to make timber a much more widely used building material. I'm Paul Becker, Senior Principal and Office Director in Thornton Tomasetti's Portland, Maine office. I'm joined today by Chris Minerva, who is a Principal and our Toronto Office Director. Chris is licensed in provinces in Canada and in several US states. And I know that he's passionate about timber design. Hi, Chris, welcome.
Hey, Paul, thanks a lot.
I wanted to spend a little time today with you to talk about iconic timber structures. What does that mean to you? What does the term iconic mean to you when it relates to timber structures?
Yeah, iconic structures, it's a very hard thing to define because you're really talking about a feeling that you get when you're in a structure or when you're interacting with a structure. I really think they have two common themes. The first is that they challenge norms. They don't solve problems the way everybody expects them to solve problems, but they do it in such a way that it becomes a norm itself. It becomes an element of timeless design that works for years and years and years. It really changes the industry or changes the way we see things. And the other big thing, which is maybe a little bit more modern, is that it has a positive contribution to society. It's sustainable in its nature. It creates comfort and good feeling for the people who occupy it or visit it.
One of the things we've talked about is the early grid shells. Maybe you could expand on that, because I know that's a structure that you really love, the Mannheim multi-hala.
It's a beautiful structure, but I even go back even further than just that structure, Paul. We start talking about some of the temples in Japan, and you look at the intricate detailing and the joinery that they used on those buildings. And those are things that we still try to obtain now. And then you move into Frei Otto's work in Mannheim, and you're looking at a structure that has a span of 60 meters, but it's made out of a lath of 2-inch by 2-inch timber. It's something that people thought could never be done. And then you can even move into more modern structures. When you look at the space frame that was recently built at the Askin Art Gallery.
I'm wondering if you could expand a little bit on how Thornton Tomasetti is contributing to the rise of creative timber design today.
Thornton Tomasetti has been working with both industry partners on active projects, but also researchers and universities to develop different ways to challenge norms and to advance the timber industry. You can see that in our project, Oxford University, for the River Beach Tower, looking at how tall can a timber building be, and also looking at what intricate connections need to be done and how those could be manufactured in a repeatable fashion in order to resist those types of high stresses that you see, not just in tall buildings, but in long spans or heavily loaded transfers. Timber is a piece by piece type of structure, and creating continuity through columns is a challenge that we always run into. So we've spent a lot of time researching how that could be done efficiently, cost effectively, and still obtain the architectural intent. And then you start moving that into the projects that we are doing, like Ascent Tower in Milwaukee, that will be one of the tallest timber structure when it's built.
So we took what we learned at the Beach River project that you talked about, and we're applying it now to newer and better buildings.
A great example of that, Paul, too, is that we've taken some of those connection work that we've done, not just on River Beach, but other, moment connections and creating continuity, and has started to see how that could help us stiffen a building so that we can build labs or hospitals out of timber and still meet those higher level vibration criteria.
We talked a lot about how do we take timber and apply it to today's needs in terms of research buildings or vibration sensitive buildings. How have you been taking that information and moving it forward?
Well, it's funny because we're talking about timber, but really concrete is a composite system. You put steel reinforcing in concrete to help balance the weakness of concrete. And steel members, we make them composite with a thin concrete slab. So that is the next evolution of timber, where we are looking at the composite behavior of timber with other elements. It drives me nuts when I hear people say, oh, well, you have to redesign your building in order to use timber, or that's not a timber building. We need to figure out, and we need to keep working through ways to advance timber so that we can get our typical planning grid that we expect in a research building, keep pushing those limits so that timber truly becomes the third in a structural engineer's arsenal. You've got concrete, steel, and timber for any structure.
So Chris, maybe you could share with us some of the common misconceptions about timber.
The biggest misconceptions about timber really are the code won't allow it, or it's a major fire hazard, or it's going to cost too much. Well, from a code perspective, we've already seen major changes in codes that have allowed taller, bigger timber structures, and allowed, the most important thing is the fire resistance based on char rating.
And the fire piece, we'll actually be speaking to Ali Ashrafi a little later in the series about fire safety and performance engineering for fire design. So, hey Chris, what do you think right now are the hurdles to bringing timber more fully into the built environment?
Well, there's really two hurdles. The first one is preconceived notions. Timber has been a single-family residential, market, and that's all it's done. So a huge part of pushing timber is continuing to push away those preconceived notions of what it does. I can remember projects that have been built recently that are, whether it be nail laminated timber or cross laminated timber, and everybody says, wow, look at these amazing buildings. We didn't know we could do that. So it's not something that is mystic or different. It's something that we've known how to do for years. And finally, codes are catching up and engineers are catching up. The second major element that really gets in the way is, for a long time, there weren't enough producers. And that pushed up the price. And we've seen a huge push over the very recent past to see much more producers out there, much more erectors out there, good quality contractors that know how to build this. And we need to move away from the sort of sole-sourced mentality of timber. And as engineers, we can keep pushing that, where we've done the research, we know what the manufacturers out there can do, and we can develop designs that can be competitively bid and continue to bring the price of construction down so that it's not an oddity or an extra cost for timber, but it's something that is just in our arsenal. It's really about opening up our mindset, getting rid of those preconceived notions, and really driving the design of timber forward so that it becomes commonplace, because it is better. It's better for our environment.
So Chris, thanks a lot for sharing your passion about timber design and for spending time with us today. And I look forward to seeing the iconic timber structures that you're going to be designing in the future.
Not a problem, Paula. I'm only designing them if we're doing them together, my friend.
All right. I'll look forward to it. So thank you for watching, and please look for our other videos in this series.